Okay, folks, I'm Eric, N1JUR, and we're going to be talking about POTA. So hopefully you guys, I see a few displays out here of folks' setup. So I'm super excited to, learn more about what you guys brought and talk more around that. But tonight, and kind of just shape the conversation really quickly, I'm not talking about POTA as a brand new operator. So if you've never done POTA, definitely come see me after. I also have a couple of presentations that I do with other clubs who aren't familiar with POTA or might not know it. Today, we're really talking about tips, tricks, and hacks. This is going to be really short, but in essence, it's hopefully going to be packed enough. So if you do POTA or you do some type of outdoor portable, a lot of these tips and tricks will help you get a little bit better performance out of your gear, out of your setup, and a number of other things. So that's kind of the frame of reference here. And so I'm going to just set a timer here really quickly so we stick to it. And so with that, if you are interested in seeing any of the videos, we'll actually have a bunch of other additional clips in tonight's video. So those that are on Zoom tonight, I apologize, you won't be able to see much of anything except the presentation. It's only a couple of slides, but I will have video clips of everybody's setup so you guys can actually see that and experience that on the Zoom side. So just sit tight, it's coming. So let's get into it. Just a real quick primer. Next slide, Todd, if you could. There we go. All right, slide 2. Okay, so tonight we are going to do just a little quick introduction. We're going to dive headfirst into tips, tricks, and hacks. Primarily tonight I'm focusing on logging, gear, and bags. So there's plenty of stuff here that I'll be able to get onto, and then we'll just dive right into the hands-on presentation. So just to kind of give you a little frame of reference, go to the next one, Todd, if you could. All right, so I've been a ham for about 30 years. However, in that time, I took a hiatus for about 20 or so years in between that to raise a family. But I am what they call a COVID ham, COVID-19 ham. How many are COVID-19 hams? Okay, quite a few. Okay, so you all know that, we had a lot of free time on our hands and we all decided, hey, let's go out and get into this thing called ham radio. I got back into the hobby, and when I got back in the hobby, I realized really quickly that, hey, there's no more code. I don't have to worry about testing for code. Now, those that might know it, back in the early 80s, No Code Technician came out. And that was the only way I could really get into ham radio. I couldn't get CW down, and it was really difficult for me. So after I tested into my general, I was like, all right, cool, I finally get to operate on HF. So, lo and behold, here's my second problem. I live in an HOA. Anybody else live in an HOA? All right, quite a few. You all know that they don't like antennas. So I have a few stealthy ones, but not enough to really wet my whistle and allow me to play in the hobby. So I sought out another way to be able to do that. And lo and behold, POTA came on the scene. And when POTA came on the scene, I was like, this is a perfect match made in heaven. I was so ready to be able to combine a lot of the other hobbies I was doing, hiking, camping, outdoor activities. And what better than combining outdoor and your radio at the same time? It's literally like the perfect storm and a match made in heaven, at least by my standards. So I was like, okay, I'm going to dive headfirst in this, and I never looked back. So with that, I decided that, hey, as I continue to evolve my kits, and I have quite a few things here, I started very early on with just a simple HT and an arrow antenna, and made 2-meter contacts on 5.2 doing POTA. And then once I finally got a rig and a few other things and started to grow my setups, I kind of expanded from there. And so we're going to get into some of that stuff, but I am super excited to share what I have, and I'm sure a bunch of others that have brought their setups are willing to answer any questions. And if you're new to this, and I'm just going to say this out front, come see me. I'll be able to point you in the direction. There are a bunch of activators, I'm sure, in this group that would love to take you out if you want to go out and do a POTA. So keep that in mind. All right. Couple other things. I also like to participate, starting to get more into SOTA. BOTA is not boats on the air, it's beaches on the air. How many significant others love the beach? Quick hands. Okay, my wife's the same way. I don't like to sit at the beach for 4.5 hours. I get bored fast. So I was like, I gotta be able to combine my radio, and I gotta be able to combine ham radio, and still letting my wife get to the beach to get her vitamin D. So I built, basically a beach radio using a QRP radio and a bunch of other things. And literally when she wants to go to the beach, I say, sure, let's go, because I can set up a full wire antenna, all stealthy, not bother anybody there, and be able to play ham radio while she's enjoying whatever she does at the beach. So, and then outside of that, like I said, I've been COVID ham and both the COVID POTA ham too as well, and have been doing POTA pretty much all 6 years. So I'll get into a little bit of that later. But if you're interested, I'm also a content creator. So those that might know of me or my channel, you can head up to YouTube, check me out. I am a very big POTA person. Love to be able to do videos around that. Love to do activations with people and just share the hobby in a sense. And if you want more ham radio stuff, Todd and I also have a podcast that we do called Live Free and Ham. You can check that out. It's just great content, and it's a way to get more into the hobby, because we all do POTA in some form or fashion, and love talking about it. All right, next slide, Todd. All right, so we're going to dive head first into this. So basically, I got 3 categories that we're going to cover. We're going to talk equipment, we're going to talk about gear, and then we're going to talk about logging. Not in that order. So I'm just going to give you a couple of tips and tricks with the purposes of hopefully making your activations better. Now, just a real quick show of hands. How many do POTA and how many have done an activation? Or 1 or 2? Okay, a couple of them. How many have a desire to want to do an activation and get into POTA? Oh, cool. Okay, all right. Well, we will definitely, this lesson and this talk is not so much on getting into it, but I guarantee everybody who brought their own setup will be more than happy to share their experiences with how to get into it. And it doesn't really require a lot of investment. You can easily get in with a lot of the stuff you already have today. And I know there's a lot of builders in our club, and those folks, if you like to build antennas and whatnot, this is a perfect area for that to do it. I am more what they call an appliance ham. I haven't gotten into that side of the hobby quite yet, although the hobby's deep and wide. So I do a lot of my antennas that are commercially made and kind of out of the box. So let's dive in. So we're going to talk about equipment. So first one is pass the mic. This one is an interesting one, because if you are a ham radio operator and say like you own an FT891, which is kind of the flagship radio of potable POTA operations. Anybody who does a POTA knows an 891. It's basically 100 watts in a box in a small form factor. With that, it's a great little radio. It does a job. And with it, I find that when I go out and activate, I love to take somebody with me. Now, a lot of times it tends to be other hams, but I'll take, a ham curious person with me. And if we go to activate at a park, 9 times out of 10, you're passing the mic. And how many, when they pass the mic, do it in a quick flash? It hits the table, it bounces, you end up hitting people in the knuckles when you try and pass the mic. I was like, there's got to be a better way. So long story short, there is a couple of products on the market real quick that you can pick up if you own an 891, and they actually have a few for the G90 and a few others cables wise that can offer the same flexibility. And all you have to do is just go out and pick up yourself an RJ45 splitter. And then you tie this back into the RJ port on the radio, and now you can basically take your mic and plug it in. And I have another 891 in the truck and another mic. I take that with me if I happen to have somebody else who's coming with me. And now him or her or I can both operate from the mic and never have to worry about changing stuff out. The benefit to that a lot of times is the fact that you don't waste time passing the mic to the next operator. And a lot of the hunters and a lot of the people that are trying to get in touch with you when you're doing a POTA, they want to get a quick in and quick out. So having something like this is definitely a plus. All right, next one for me is press the buttons. I am a big fan of the recording. Those that know me know that on my FT891, I have the record option where I record my voice. But what I do to kind of step the game up a little bit is I picked up the FH2 when it was on sale. Now it's like really ridiculous in price, but you can build these yourselves. This is actually a really easy kit to do if you want to build on your own. And the benefit to this is just pre-programmed buttons. So This is a good time. I actually just did a POTA last week down in Arlington at Alewife Park right over by Alewife Station. And yeah, the bands weren't that great. And so I was constantly trying to just cycle through my voice, CQ, CQ, over and over again. Well, that gets really tiring after a while when you're doing that. So you set up a recording. Well, you can now take something like this and pre-program all those buttons with the 891, and now I can do a CW, call. I can do, pre-program messages. If you're a CW operator, this is also a gold mine too, because you can also pre-program a lot of your quick responses for 5.9s and signal reports and that type of stuff. So if you're serious into POTA and you want to, have efficient operations, these are always a great tool to have in your kit. All right, my third one tonight is, it's the way. I know I'm sure I'm going to ruffle a few feathers when I say this. And again, I am a lover of all antennas and all radios. So I will never shame anybody, for whatever brand they like, because every radio is different for everybody. And everybody likes different features for different reasons. I am about resonant antennas. When I go out and activate POTAs, I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of opportunity to be able to activate for 3 or 4 hours. So I really need to just decide how quickly can I get set up, how can I get out there and start making contacts to either activate the park or try to just, beat my, own personal challenges with, making more contacts in a shorter amount of time. So I always subscribe to resonant antennas. I do that both for wire antennas, I do that for verticals, and, for what it's worth, my benefit that I get out of it is it's just a quick setup and quick get on the air. So when you're thinking about your kit and you're thinking about what you want to do, resonant antennas is a good way to go. All right, this next one is a little bit of a investment. There are ways, and I strongly recommend, and I did it when I first started out in POTA, is that you can listen through your radio, through the static when you're trying to adjust your vertical or your wire antenna for residency in the bands that you're trying to work. You can use it by the tune by ear option. I was getting good at that for a little while, but then I was realizing it's just taking a lot of time for me. So I decided that I was going to start to save the pennies and basically pick up myself a Rig Expert stick SWR analyzer. These things are great. They're a little pricey now just based off of all of the things that are going on. And sometimes they're a little harder to pick up depending on what you're looking for. But if you're serious about getting out there and doing POTAs a lot, these things will save your butt 9 times out of 10 because you don't have to keep running back to the radio, running back and forth. You can easily just program it quickly, get the resonancy of whatever band you're on, and you can get off and start, activating.
Eric, how many pennies does it take?
Well, if you do the calculations, these are about a little bit north of $2.95. Now, this is not the Pro, so the Pro puts it just a little higher. They were, when I first bought them, they were just below. Bill, question?
The nano VNAs will also serve you.
Yep. So if you were looking for a cheaper option, I'm all about simplicity and quickness. Nano VNAs are an awesome option, but my suggestion, and I had a nano VNA and I still do, is learn how to use the device before you even get out in the field. If you don't, you are going to spend hours trying to figure out what you're trying to see on this device, and you're not going to be able to play POTA. And that's really, what I'm trying to get at here. This solves a quick problem. Nano VNA, those are great educational devices to be able to really give you an accurate look. All right. The last one for me is more bandwidth. And I only say that with the purpose of my antennas. I love vertical antennas. I love their setup. I love the functionality. I am a big fan. If you know of the Australian company Mad Dog Coils, they do an 80 meter coil. They do a 40 meter coil, similar to the same Wolf River coils, if you're familiar with that company. Both of those are great antennas. I've reviewed them many times. I use them out in the field. My very first antenna was the Wolf River coil. What I learned with talking a couple other hams as I started to get more into doing activations was, well, why don't you center load your antenna? And I'm like, well, what's that going to give me? Well, if you know what that does, it increases the bandwidth of the antenna. Now, the benefit to that is that, like in a situation like we have now, the bands are kind of sketchy. They're up and down. I have basically done a head-to-head matchup between the same park where I didn't center load my coil and I center loaded the coil, and I was making, and again, this is not scientific, but I was making more contacts by basically center loading that coil. It's also able to hear a lot better too. So when the bands aren't that great, or the conditions tend to be fluctuating all the time, if you have the capability, you can run out to your hardware store, pick up a couple of threaded rods. They're basically 2 feet in length, and then center load your coil and you're off to the races. So I always carry those with me in the bag. And they have been a lifesaver when I'm trying to squeak out a few contacts. All right, next one. All right, this is logging. This is one of my favorites. So with logging, how many of you guys, when you do POTA, paper log? Okay. How many have some electronic logging? All right, okay, so quite a bit. So definitely seems to be more favored to that. I love the paper logging option, but I also love the electronic capability just for convenience. In my bags, in every bag that I have, for whatever kit I have, I always have yellow stickets. I am an operator who can't remember more than 3 calls at a time. So if you're in a pileup and you're trying to remember who the next 2 were that kind of came in clear, I always have a yellow pad with me, and I write down the call signs there. And then so when I want to do rapid fire and you're just trying to get contacts through, having that little yellow stick-it pad, I'm able to write down the calls, and it's just convenient. So I always have those available in my pack all the times, and it's been a lifesaver, especially in the large pileups. RTFM. As we all know, none of us read the manuals. We all just toss them aside and say, hey, we can figure this out. So I strongly suggest before you even, and I always say this to everybody, and in my presentation that I do for POTA for the beginners, I always say that, before you go out, do a K-test. Anybody's done a K-test or US-test? Anybody know what a US-test is? Okay, well, US-test, all it is you take all your gear, you go out to your front yard, you set up, and you call CQ US-test. Hunters get credit for it. You don't, obviously, because it's not a legit park, but you get to test all of your equipment, all of your logging capabilities, everything that you kind of assembled, in your shack or whatever, and work that out. That includes your logger. How many of us, go into a logger thinking it's just going to fill in a contact, no problem, and always end up fumbling through trying to get it to work. So I always strongly suggest, and the fact that loggers are coming out now that are getting more complex, they're getting much smarter, they're getting quicker to add in, data to. It's always good to go up to their websites and check them out. And I'll get into some of those details in a little bit around some of the tips and hacks that I have for specifically Polo a little bit later. So be connected. This one's kind of I wouldn't say controversial option, but really what it means is that a lot of times when you go out to a park, 9 times out of 10, if you want to get automatic logging for your logger, so you want to see the call sign, look up, work with Q or Z, that type of stuff, you're going to want to have some type of data plan. And a lot of people do the simple thing. They take their iPads and they basically just have a Bluetooth keyboard tied to it, and then they hotspot it to their tablet. 9 times out of 10, it works okay. I have always experienced the opposite. And for whatever reason, right in the middle of the heat of the battle, all of a sudden my hotspot decides to go south and just shut off or disconnect. Well, at that point, I can't continue to pull up, QRZ data. My iPad might behave erratically. So I said, forget this. In essence, I needed something a little bit more stronger. So if you have the capabilities, I would say definitely go out and get yourself a data-enabled tablet-type device. Or if you have a laptop, the capabilities will outweigh the fact of the additional cost, especially when you start doing a lot of quicker logs and you're doing a lot of POTA activations. It's always been one of the easier ones, and I can't tell you how many times I've been at a park with one of my friends, and they haven't updated their device, and all of a sudden they finally plug it to their hotspot, and the device, Polo pops up and says, oh, hey, you want to be updated? And it starts to go through the update, and the process is so slow because it's trying to update. That saves a lot of time and headache with the data plan on your device. So it's kind of one of those advanced things if you're, a diehard POTA guy, but I love it. I literally never leave home without that. All right, prepare. As we all know, I was a Boy Scout, and so I was always about be prepared. This kind of falls back into the US dash test. The benefit to that is the fact that you're going to get an opportunity to flush out all of the bugs and crazy stuff in your setup. Preparing also boils down to, your batteries. Todd can confess, and many other people in this room have probably heard me every time that I go out to an activation, and lo and behold, I thought I plugged in my battery, and guess what? It didn't charge overnight, trying to be proactive, and I get out to the park, and I'm right in the middle of an activation, and my radio dies. And I'm like, what's going on? Thinking it's an electrical issue. Nope, I just didn't charge the battery. So preparing and setting yourself up to constantly be able to keep all of those things charged and updated and ready at the waiting will help you. All right, the last two things are hacks. So this one with Polo. How many of you guys use Polo as a logger? Okay, we got one. Okay, has anybody heard of Polo? Okay. All right, if you're currently, say, a Hammers user, which has probably been the staple of logging applications that are out there, Polo is kind of the step up to that. I probably won't go into all of the details with all the hacks out of Polo, but I have to say, where if you find you're doing a lot of data entry with the logger you're doing, meaning you're trying to enter call signs when, say, you get a park to park with 4 activators at it. Well, now you've got 4 call signs. You have to log 4 separate people. You have to give them all their own signal reports. That gets tedious very fast. So if you're not writing it down, or you're not keeping up, pace with it, or you don't remember the park number every time you enter somebody in, things like Polo make that heavy lifting easier. So I'm happy to share a lot more of those with folks to let you guys know what those look like, and get you kind of into the Polo ecosphere, because once you're in it, you'll be like, it's a breath of fresh air. All right, and be prepared again. That's just there for the purposes of, the N+1 rule. I always say, if you only have one, it's none. And 2 is 1. So I always have at least 2 batteries with me. Always carry at least 2 antennas, whether it's a wire or a vertical. There have been plenty of times that I haven't followed that rule, and I get to the POTA site, and I'm just like, where's my antenna? Where's my antenna? And then I realized, oh yeah, I left it on the stairs at home. So those things I have made the efforts to put in my truck, so I have spare antennas, spare verticals, for the purposes of being able to have the convenience of activating when I felt like it. All right, this next one is my favorite, and forward ahead, Todd. All right, gear and accessories. Those that know me and know when I do field day, I have stressed to all my station captains, comfort. I love comfort. I do not want to operate on an old egg crate box with candlelight. I prefer to actually operate in a comfort zone. I actually prefer to have myself comfortable and have the right spread to be able to just, do the park. And part of that for me as well has been the fact that I also look for portability. So I used to carry around a very large, comfortable, camping chair. Loved the chair, was perfect, but it was getting the crap kicked out of it in its in the back of my truck. So I was like, I'm looking for a different way to be able to carry stuff. So I have invested, is the best way to say it because it is expensive. For those that have heard of the brand called Helinox. Helinox is a great camping outdoor company, and they provide manufacture chairs and tables that really pack down super small to like half of this scale. And so I didn't bring them with me. They're in the back of my truck. But I have those strapped to a saddle bag in the back of my truck. And literally I can take that chair and the table, go with it wherever I'm going to activate, set it all up in a matter of 5 minutes, pack it all back down, and it's super comfortable. So if you're looking to upgrade your sitting or operating position, definitely look into stuff like that, because it'll make your activating time longer because you're less comfortable, you're not suffering from back pain, or you're not worrying about the chair falling out from underneath you. It's always something to definitely invest in. Next one, I always forget. I always keep in my bag because getting into more soda, food and fluids. I don't always remember to pack food with me or bring snacks. I always throw in all of my bags, like the energy bars, that type of stuff, because What's worse than you're in the middle of a pile up and you don't, question, Bill.
What's worse is you don't have water.
That is worse, especially if you get stuck out with nowhere. But yes, worse. Both food and water tend to be the two things on my list that I always remember to bring. I always keep water in my truck as a spare, and I always bring extra snacks in my bag so I can, again, just be comfortable when I'm operating and enjoying the activation. All right, this one is an important one. Block the rays. I'm now keeping a bottle of sunscreen with me in all of my vehicles and all of my cars, because I can't tell you how many times when I go out to an activation, I'm not always looking for shade, or I can't find shade for that matter. And I'm just like, I'm gonna sit down here right in the dead middle of the day of sun, and I come out like looking super tan, but I'm thinking in the back of my head, not a good thing. So have that with you, make sure you carry. The last thing with that kind of falls in that boat, any of you see these before? These are enter cells. These are lifesavers. So I do a lot of activations during the middle of the business day, just because I go out to a site for a client, and then I got a couple hours to kill before my next spot. So I'll go find a park. I don't want to spray bug spray on any of my clothing and then go to my next client smelling like the outdoors. So I pick these up. These things are amazing. They're USB-C USB charge. Actually, no, these are USB-C. And the cartridges are the only thing that are super expensive. But literally, I take these, put them in my bag, and then when I set up, I just turn it on. It basically just coats the area that I'm in, and I never get attacked. Mayflies, horse flies, all that stuff. Those things are amazing. I don't know what they're putting in the air. I'm sure it's probably not great, but at the same time, I'm still having fun while I'm activating.
Take a big honk out of
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just don't sit too close, kind of like don't touch your antenna when you're transmitting kind of thing. All right, so it's called an inner cell. Yep, INNER.
They really work.
This one's Thermacell, but yeah.
Oh, Thermacell.
Yep.
I was doing an activation once, and my antenna was out, and it got dark out, and I left the bench, and I got attacked by 1,000 mosquitoes, and there was nothing.
dead bird.
Yeah, a lot of things. All right, this last one, if any of those folks around here love to be able to organize their packs, I'm sure there are a number of different ways you can tackle this. I have other friends, and those that might know Paul N1OG. He's a big color bag person. He likes to be able to organize all his things in long colored bags you can't see. I love these women's makeup mesh bags. I leave them with everything. So if I have a whole bunch of connectors, so each bag I provide a radio in. Each of those connector sets will do everything for that bag and that radio. So I have barrel connectors, I have, gender changers, I have everything that'll work with that. And then I also include a small little, SMA section too as well, just in case I need a patch or something. My digital setup for a DigiRig, $891, all in here. So all I do is take it out, plug it in the radio. When I'm done, put it back in here. I can see all of this stuff. That's why I do these mesh bags. So I don't have to go fumbling around. Here's the thing that a lot of people forget. When you're out activating, how many remember to bring a power brick or a charging cable for their phones, because we use them all day? So I always keep, USB-C cables, lightning cables, that type of stuff, so I can recharge my phones while I'm out there in the field and not, miss a phone call or, worse off, not be able to continue to log. So however you do your kits, and I can show you some of the bags I have over here that I use for POTA. I'll show you, how I incorporate a lot of those things into those kits and why I choose what I choose, just if you're interested in that area. All right, so let's go to the last slide. All right, so this is, okay, we're in the hands-on section. So we are at the point of wrapping up here. So what I wanted to do is that I appreciate everybody who brought your own setups. It's really cool to see folks' setups. The idea for tonight wasn't for me to sit up here and talk your ear off. And so I tried to keep it very quick, and I think I achieved that, hopefully. And so I really want you guys, if you got questions, head over to the tables if you haven't checked out their setups and their operation yet. ask questions. If you are new to POTA and you don't know where to go, come see me. I'll happily, show you, and try to give you some guidance if you're interested in getting a setup. And feel free to ask questions, because in essence, tonight is really just about learning about, what you can do to build your own kit. And that's the nice thing about POTA, is that you don't really have to have a full-blown setup to get out and do something. Like, I know a lot of people. Ralph has got a G90, and he just threw up a wire antenna, and he was making contacts halfway around the world, and having a blast for his first event at POTA. And Tim does QRP, and so there's a whole space available for everybody to kind of participate. You don't have to worry about, having the most expensive rig or the best receiver, because in essence, it's not about that. It's about the community, it's about the people, it's about being the DX. That's the fun thing I love about POTA, is that I don't have to go out and find the DX. I just pop at a park and people find me, and they want to make contact with me. I just don't understand today why I'll talk to people and they'll be like, I've been trying to hunt you for a while. I'm like, I'm just this guy. I don't have anything special to bring to the table, but they all want to make contacts at the parks. They all follow you around, and you make some really, really good friendships. I have people and colleagues that you hear their voice on the radio, and you're like, hey, that's Bruce. And then, we have a 5-second conversation, and then we're back, activating again. But, him and I, we've never crossed paths. I'm sure one day we might, but, either way, we act like we're best friends, and we've been doing this, for years. So, all in all, that is my talk and everything there. So if you got questions, feel free to seek everybody out who's brought a station. And if you got any questions directly, yeah, Ryan.
Is there a club POTA meetup coming up for this year?
Yes. So actually, good question. So we do, as a club, 2 POTA meetups every year. We do following what we call our Support Your Parks weekend structure. So we already had the spring one. We usually do a fall one. And so that's probably coming up September, October, I think it is, right around there. Yep. So it's a great session. We all just kind of show up. We all, talk about radios. We all activate. The benefit to doing it as a Support Your Parks weekend is that it's literally drinking from the fire hose. You cannot afford, although I felt bad for you guys this past one, the band just wanted to say, I need a break. All in all, the HF side of things was really tough, but you guys did some awesome stuff with doing VHF and UHF, which is...
I got Barry on CW in the parking lot. So that was pretty good.
Okay. So that's the perfect example. So you don't have to in a kit. If you've got an Arrow antenna and you've got an HT, you can do POTA. I have met people that love to just do VHF and UHF. They have no desire to do VHF, but they bring in their VHF, UHF kits and they have a blast with it. You can, go crazy with the products. Like I said, the 891's kind of the Chevy version of POTA. Everybody who owns a Chevy knows what the deal is. Or you can get into things like, is that a 6200 or 61?
6200.
So it's like a Zygoose 6200, 61, right? 62, sorry. 6200, great SDR radio. This is an FX4CR, great QRP little radio. You can get crazy with everything. Like, you guys probably have seen this antenna, or at least recently seen a lot of ads. Everybody know about spool antenna? This is the great little antenna. I just did a review on this one. I'm pretty impressed with it. Although, I'm surprised they didn't come up with the idea a lot long ago. But in essence, great design, really good antenna. So, like I said, I've got a whole bunch of different antennas that I'm willing to share my feelings with and ask any questions around them. And so, with that, thank you guys again.